Hey, good morning. It's Pastor Jeff with your Sunday morning message. Thank you so much for tuning in with us here at Freedom Church. I am fresh from Florida Man games. I got my sunburn, my windburned face, and sore feet and a tired back to prove it. But today I want to talk to you about some things that, as we work through the primal questions, here's some statistics for you. 80% of women do not believe that they are enough. 73% of men feel inadequate, and 91% of women do not love their bodies. And 75% of female executives feel like they suffer from imposter syndrome. So this message today is in the primal question of, am I wanted? What do we value? What do we value? As a parent, I noticed every time I'm with other parents and we start talking, they want to compare milestones. Is your baby walking yet? What age did your baby walk at? How are they sleeping? What percentile are they in? And then it becomes, what kind of grades are they getting? Are they making all A's? Are they in an academy? Do they play a sport? Do they play an instrument? If so, how good are they? How much money have you spent to make them good at it? How busy are you getting them to everything? The badge of honor today is talking about how busy you are instead of how strong your relationships with your children are and how much your children appreciate what God has done for them. We are wrapped up in all the wrong things. The church is struggling because people would rather spend all of their time doing a whole lot of things, chasing dreams for their kids, instead of teaching their children disciplines and teaching their children's family values and things. As a pastor, I hear it in questions like, how big is your church? How long have you been there? How many this? How much that? And so on. As a coach, it's, how good is your team? How many games did you win last year? How long have you been coaching? As a racer, it's, how many races have you won? How fast is your car? Comparison, comparison, comparison. It can rob us of all of our self-confidence, but it cannot take away your self-worth. See, the problem is we are so wrapped up in self-confidence sometimes, we forget that God has given us self-worth and a value. While the questions themselves can be nothing more than small talk, the value we give the answers reveals our hearts. We're tempted to lie or stretch the truth about things because we think it makes us look better or it makes us feel more esteemed. While we add up details in our minds, we tally invisible points in our heads, creating our own little scoreboards of who is important and why are they important. You see, self-confidence without self-worth will lead you to send a representative of yourself into most situations instead of your authentic, true self. Truth is, most people that we call fake aren't really that fake. They have low self-worth. They believe they aren't good enough to be loved and accepted as they are. So they try to act as if they are enough so that no one will notice how they feel about themselves. That, my friends, is not how God works. God does not work like that. In Luke 16, Jesus tells his disciples a parable that concludes with the instruction, you cannot serve God and money. And the Pharisees, who were lovers of money, ridicule him in response. He introduces them to a revolutionary value system, one where being humanly rich or powerful or popular or successful in the world's eyes is not what matters the most. And they laugh at him. You are those who justify themselves before men, but God knows your hearts. And he responds to them, for what is exalted among men is an abomination to the sight of God. In Matthew 6, he says the same thing again. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? No person can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. So that's the long version of it. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. Jeff went to the doctor 2 weeks ago and found out that all of his vision problems are a cataract. Yes, at 47 years old, I have a cataract. And we don't know what's caused it or where it's come from. But I can tell you this, I don't enjoy a lot of things I normally enjoy. I don't enjoy softball as much as I should because I can't be as involved as I want to be. I'm not sure if I enjoy racing as much as I should because I don't see like I ought to see. I haven't raced in a while, so I don't know for sure. But I can tell you I still love it and I still want to go do it and I plan to go do it. But my eyesight drifting, if I cover this eye, I'm good. If I cover this eye, I can't make out my own face in this video looking at my phone. And so that's a problem. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. It's blurry and it's dark in my right eye. Jesus is making a great comparison here. But he's saying, don't lay up treasures on earth because everything on this earth is going to waste away. Or it will be taken from you. Or you can completely lose it. Lay up treasures in heaven where it can never be taken away from you. You've probably heard the saying, you are what you eat. The truth is, you become what you value. You become what you value. Whatever you value the most in life is what you chase after. To put it another way, your self-worth is your ceiling. We're going to spend the next few weeks talking about the difference between self-worth and self-confidence. Self-confidence will crumble. Self-worth will always rise. Trying to look like you are enough will come crashing down every single time. But actually knowing with full confidence that you are enough will carry you through every single one of life's tests and trials. So whether we're talking about who has the bigger bank account or who has the nicest house, who is the busiest, reliving their life through their kids by being the busiest person in their circle, when we look at the things that are exalted among men as measures of our self-worth, we're behaving like the Pharisees were. We're exalting what God doesn't exalt. We're valuing what God doesn't value. Instead of anchoring our identities on Him and the fact that He, the God, the maker of all things, the God of the universe, loves us, we're seeking to justify ourselves before man. But God knows our hearts. This week's primal question, am I wanted? People with this primal question need to live each day in the sweetness of their own belonging, which empowers them to make everyone else feel included. Their biggest need is to feel included, accepted, and be pursued. At their best, they have a unique ability to make people feel included in things. They're strong in social settings. They're good with people, and they have positive relational skills. They're powerful connectors and team builders. In their scramble, they lose themselves in the full-time project of avoiding the sting of any type of rejection. Their identity is wrapped up in what they do instead of who they are, which in turn makes each failure their identity instead of simply a description of an event. Their greatest kryptonite is rejection in any form. What do you value? What does God value? What does God esteem? In contrast to our ambition as humans here on earth, our desire to rank highly with resumes and followers and likes and comments or skills, consider these passages that reveal what God calls worthy of esteem. Psalm 147, 10 and 11. His delight is not in the strength of the horse, nor his pleasure in the legs of a man. But the Lord takes pleasure in those who fear him, and those who hope in his steadfast love. 2 Chronicles 16:9. For the eyes of the Lord run to and fro throughout the whole earth, to give strong support to those whose heart is blameless toward him. 1 Samuel 2:30. For those who honor me, I will honor, and those who despise me shall be lightly esteemed. In 1 Corinthians 1:27 through 29. But God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even things that are not, to bring to nothing things that are, so that no human being might boast in the presence of God. We brag about a lot of stuff. I think it's funny to hear people brag, and Paul talks about this in one of his letters. He talks about how people brag about where they're from. When you brag about where you're from, you're bragging on God. You didn't choose where you were born. You didn't choose where you would be born. You didn't choose where you would flourish. You were born there. I talk with parents who talk about where they want their kid to go to high school. Well, I know where God wants them. God wants them where he planted them. They were born 18 years ago, or when you're deciding on a high school 14 years ago. They were born in a house. They didn't know how good a sports team they were going to have or how good they were going to be at anything. God did. God had a plan for them, and God planted them there. And so when you're making those decisions, parents, God planted them there. Trust God. Trust God's process. Instead of, oh, we've got to go here and we've got to go there. No, God had a plan long before they were conceived. God planted you where you are. Grow where you're planted. Because God chooses what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. And he chose the weak in the world to shame the strong. And he chooses what is low and despised to bring nothing to those that are. And then 1 Samuel 16:7, we talked about this at length with our teenagers on Wednesday night. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. This is a conversation about King David. He was the young runt in the back. His father brought in all his strapping, muscular, oldest boys. Went down the list from strongest to weakest, oldest to youngest, on down the list. Samuel says, this is not our God. This is not our God. This is not our guy. And God said, he's here. He's in this house. God does not look at anything but the heart. Man looks at the outside and can't see the heart. And he said, my future king is there. My anointed one is there. And it turned out to be the youngest one, the runt, out in the back, taking care of the animals. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. And because we know Jesus, rather than wasting our energy trying to be impressive, we should want to spend our lives seeing and savoring him. We need to want to abandon the need to rank highly among men and to choose instead to fear him and hope in his everlasting love. We don't have to fight to be heard. We don't have to strive to be noticed. We don't have to work for a position. We don't have to ask a new contact to hang out, to network with them, to see how they can help us. We can ask people to hang out because they too are human beings made in the image of God. And we can freely delight in our exchange and our time with them, regardless of how helpful they are to us. There are people in this world that do everything for networking. And every relationship is someone to use. And you can tell a lot about a person's self-worth by how they use connections. I think of myself as pretty well connected. But you know why I'm connected? Because they're relationships to me. A lot of people get connected and immediately they're doing the internal math of what they can gain from that connection. So they miss out on a true relationship with them because they're using them to build their self-confidence instead of pouring into them with their self-worth. We all know someone like that is constantly using everyone around them for gain. And when someone is interested or uninterested in me because of the things that the world esteems, I just have to remember that God doesn't look at me that way and God doesn't value me that way. So if I produce something that gets 3 likes, or something that gets 1,000 watches, or 10,000 hits online, doesn't matter to me. I don't go back and look. I post and I leave. So if you want to interact with me, odds are I'm probably not going to see it. I don't measure myself that way, and I'm not going to start doing it. Loving Jesus frees me to take such pleasure in knowing him and the thousands of ways he reveals himself to me that the rankings of the world no longer matter. What are human positions compared to God? Who is impressive in the presence of the one who made all things? Knowing the sovereign God means knowing what it means to be unimpressed by what society says is worth pursuing. There is nothing and there is no one more valuable than him. You heard me say earlier that our self-worth is our ceiling. Here's what I meant by that. Several years ago, professional football player Odell Beckham Jr. became famous for a one-handed catch in a game against the Dallas Cowboys. There was a defender on him, and he actually got called for pass interference on the play. Beckham only had one hand free, and he was falling backwards. So he jumped backwards, reached up, and caught the ball while crashing into the end zone. It was an amazing catch. People talked about it and continue to talk about it for a long time, thinking possibly it was one of the greatest catches ever. And then people started watching his pregame ritual. He practiced one-handed catches with both hands before every game during his warm-ups. You see, Navy SEALs say when you're under extreme pressure, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall back on your level of preparation. Odell Beckham Jr. didn't rise to the occasion. He fell back on his level of preparation. He made about a half dozen one-handed catches in his career. All of them were amazing because of his preparation. So when it comes down to it, when we wonder if we're wanted, if we wonder if we're good enough, we don't rise to what we think is possible. We usually fall to what we think we're worthy of. And you were worthy of Jesus giving his life on a cross. And that's all you need to know. Self-confidence will get you some places, but self-worth will carry you anywhere you want to go. And you are highly esteemed and valued by a God who loves you unconditionally. Have a great day and God bless.